Hey everyone, it's MrMostDaysOff with a couple of quick announcements before we start today's show. First of all, we've only got a few short days left to take advantage of 20% off at popthreads.com when you use the discount code Simpsons at checkout. That 20% lasts all throughout February. It will still be 15% anytime after that. Make sure you take advantage of that sale while you can. Also, we have started the contest, Worst Contest Ever. All you have to do is use the hashtag Worst Contest Ever anywhere on social media. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it doesn't matter. Use that hashtag as much as you possibly can. We are going to put you in a drawing to win an early release copy of Mike Reese's new book, Springfield Confidential. So use that hashtag Worst Contest Ever as much as possible, and we'll get you in the drawing. Other than that, enjoy this week's Best Darn Diddly Review Show. Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and today we are continuing our stampede right on through Season 5 and bringing you our review of Bart Gets an Elephant. And of course, joining me, as always, your co-host with the most, Richie theWizKid. How you doing today, Rich?
I am doing quite excellent today. You're not going to get two quick elephant metaphors or jokes in that quick of time on any other show.
Not a single other podcast in the world.
In the history of the world and the universe.
The most there ever was, the most there ever is, and the most there ever will be.
I feel like that was a wrestling thing. But anyways, I guess I'll throw it back to you so you can go ahead and start talking. The man, the myth, the whale hunter, seal clubber, ivory dealer. It is Miles.
Hey, I've never been any of those things, though I was briefly the president of Fox. They considered me too wholesome. As I mentioned today, we are going to be talking about the episode Bart Gets an Elephant, which originally aired on March 31st, 1994. And this is an episode that I have actually been looking forward to, though you have openly said that you predict this one might be your least favorite of Season 5. And just without, we're going to go into it in detail here shortly, but just as an initial question here, do you feel like that's probably going to be the case after watching it again?
Actually, no, I don't. I will go into this saying this episode was on TV all the time when I was a kid. I saw this episode so many times, but it's been, after I hit the teenage years, I don't know if I ever saw it up until this point because I naturally stayed away from it if I saw it was coming up, on the WB or something. And I forgot how damn funny this episode is. In my mind, this episode was always Season 2, Season 3, and being in Season 5 is a great way to get me to like an episode more to begin with. I was still hesitant going in it, but by the time I got done, I was like, man, this just made me laugh the whole way through. I forgot how damn good it is.
It is really good, and I think it sticks to the more surreal elements that have been known in Season 5 because David Merkin has taken over as showrunner. And of course, this is also a John Swartzwelder episode, which could also have to do why in your mind it kind of had that older feel to it, just because he has been around for a while, and his episodes do tend to have that quality about them at times, though they're almost always full of jokes that I think a lot of times we may not have gotten as kids. There's a lot of stuff in this episode that's subtle, but I think would have not necessarily been nearly as funny as a kid as it is, today as we're reviewing it.
Well, there's also one point where Homer and Bart, with back-to-back lines, have two iconic lines that I always quoted and never realized it was from this episode. And for me personally, I was just thinking when I got done watching it, I was like, this is why we do the podcast right here. This episode is why I like doing the podcast. It's something where I'm not necessarily looking forward to that particular episode, and then just coming back and rewatching it, it's just all these great parts that you never even caught before or didn't remember was a part of this one. And I thought, man, this is a good day.
Always a good day when we get to watch and talk about The Simpsons. So let's go ahead and dive into this one. We do have shortened credits for this episode, but we still get both a chalk and a couch gag. The chalk gag is organ transplants are best left to the professionals. Probably good advice.
Unless you don't have a lot of cash.
Unless you are short on cash. That is the quickest way to get ahead. The couch gag on this one was also really good. We see the eyeballs of the Simpsons run into a dark room, just like you would any cartoon where the lights are off and you can only see their eyes. Only when the lights turn on, we can see that it really is just the floating eyeballs of all of the Simpsons now on the Simpsons couch. And it takes a few seconds before the rest of the Simpsons' bodies actually catch up to their eyeballs. Plus, there's this really gratifying suction sound whenever the eyes actually connect with their skulls.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're getting something else in this episode that we have not had in some time, Rich. We get a first appearance of a very popular character.
Hey, Mo! Get off the dang roof!
Cletus the slack-jawed yokel, though in this script, he was only ever referred to as man, and they said around the writer's room he was called the slack-jawed yokel, but it will be a little while now before he actually gets a name.
Some folks'll never clean toe, but then again some folk'll. The Cletus, the slack-jawed yokel. I don't think I actually said that right. I don't know what the actual line is on that one for once.
You got it close enough. We know what you're trying to say.
Brandine!
Diving into this episode, we open up with a beautiful morning in Springfield. The rooster is crowing, the sun is coming up over the horizon, and Marge wakes up to start her day. Only as she starts to work her way down the stairs, we can see that the house is an absolute mess. I believe the first thing that happens is she actually steps on a sandwich that was left on the stairs, and that's immediately followed by finding some random underwear, which I assume is Homer's. Has to be Homer's.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the theme here is we're going to see a lot of Homer underwear in places it shouldn't be, because unfortunately this continues for Marge as she goes into the kitchen to start breakfast, only to open the fridge and find Homer's bowling ball, which I guess, to be fair, she could have left that there. It was the ball marked Homer, which she did receive as a gift all the way back in season 1.
What I don't understand is why is there a red light on the inside of the fridge?
That's a very good question. I didn't even notice that, to be honest. But I did notice yet more underwear also found in the fridge.
Well, that's how you clean it, right?
Ew. I am not coming over to your place for dinner anymore.
Yeah, your damage has been done, sir.
Even with all of these hurdles in the form of the various piles of mess that are left everywhere, Marge still manages to make all of the Simpsons clan a delicious-looking breakfast. They all get a short stack of pancakes, and they all three, including Homer, come in and cheerfully say, "Hi, Mom! Hi, Mom! Hi, Mom!" Which is kind of creepy.
But it's really funny. It's not.
It
creepy
is really
at all.
funny. It's not creepy. You're right.
The timing on it's so perfect. He's like a child.
He really is. And then also the response from Marge is great too, because there's a typical groan that says so much more than any other character's dialogue often does.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom.
The family starts talking about their plans for the day. After breakfast, Bart plans to go down to the ravine with Milhouse. They heard some tips from a 6-year-old that there's a dead Martian down there. That's going to be an exciting day.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Lisa is excited to go jam at the park with the Little White Girls Blues Quartet. I love her. She asks Homer, "You want to come along, Daddy-O?"
I'd love to, honey, but Daddy has to go to a beer drinking contest today.
You think you'll win, Dad?
Son, when you participate in sporting events, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how drunk you get.
Gotcha. Well, gotta go.
Which is a perfect summation of how sporting events should be.
That is typically how we choose to enjoy sporting events.
Well, I choose to actually enjoy the event as well, but I mean, there's no reason you can't get drunk while enjoying it.
Nobody enjoys football. What are you talking about?
Well, not that Super Bowl, but you know.
That was actually a really good game. For somebody who did not watch a single football game the entire season, except for the Super Bowl, I thoroughly enjoyed that game. It was really exciting to watch. However, you keep trying to make fun of me for watching a predetermined sport, and you're trying to convince me that shit's not staged.
If it was staged, the Patriots would have won, because that's what always happens when they stage games.
Every once in a while, you gotta let the other team win. You gotta keep the heel, let the baby face go over the heel.
That's why they play the Giants every few years.
So the families had their breakfast, and they are on their way out the door, but not so fast, because Marge actually stands in the doorway and prevents them from leaving.
It's hard for us to leave when you're standing there, Mom.
Push her down, son. God. This line, I think, could only, even in the 90s, I think this line could only really be delivered by a character like Homer Simpson. And in the way he says it, even though it's so just, I mean, to think about this is absurd and wrong in so many ways, but he's so cheerful when he delivers the line that it somehow just is really, really funny.
I don't know. I think a Jeff Winger type could probably deliver the line and make it like dark and funny at the same time. Like where Homer's just stupid and funny. I think Winger could have pulled it off.
You know, speaking of Jeff Winger, I just recently watched that movie they dropped on Netflix recently that was about the history of about the history of the National Lampoon magazine, like as that was getting started and how it became, you know, a series of movies and all that good stuff. And super appropriate, blanking on his name, but the person that plays Jeff Winger,
Joe McHale, he played Chevy Chase in that movie.
Oh, wow. Which he had 6 years worth of character study?
Yeah, exactly.
I just thought I got a kick out of that. And it was actually a really good movie. I like biopics like that, however.
That would be fun to watch.
You should definitely check it out. Highly recommend. Speaking of things that have nothing to do with The Simpsons. Oh, wait, that's not what this podcast is about. Back to The Simpsons. Marge tells everybody that they are not going anywhere until the entire house is clean from top to bottom. And I love that we get yet another role reversal here where Homer acts more childish than the kids do. Because while the kids are disappointed, it's actually Homer who actually starts crying out and basically throwing a hissy fit. Bart does, however, try to flee the scene. And I have to say, I absolutely love the animation here in this sequence because they do this really clever bird's eye view, which it reminded me of The Sims, which, to be fair, I did not play nearly as much of The Sims as you did, but I do remember that when you'd be playing that game, you could get like a bird's eye view where the roof of your house would essentially be missing, so you could kind of have a top-down perspective, and that's
it's
actually
like a 3/4 view, I think, in The Sims, but yeah, it's close.
Well, that's what this reminded me of, as you see actually Bart run through the kitchen doorway and then try to get out of the front door. But Marge, once again, is there to stop him. And she even says something along the lines of, I think you're going to find that escape is impossible. She's kind of turned into a bit of a psycho here in this moment.
It's like, well, it's a good villain's line, like a James Bond villain. Like, I think you'll find escape is impossible, Mr. Bond.
Which, for what it's worth, this made me think, you know, those escape rooms that are getting really popular. Somebody needs to make a Simpsons-themed escape room where Marge is holding you hostage and you have to figure out how to escape the house without actually having to clean. Just throwing that out there. That'd be a lot of fun.
Or it's, you have to leave Moe's drunk and get home without Wiggum catching you.
I like that too. I could also see it being fun to have to escape from like the you only move twice villain who I'm blanking on right now. The Elon Musk guy.
Hank Scorpio?
Hank Scorpio. Thank you so much. Elon Musk is what was in my head. It's because they have all those memes out right now with Hank Scorpio side by side with Elon Musk and the flamethrower.
Yeah. Honestly, if they did that kind of escape room, though, the easiest one, the one they would absolutely do is you have to escape the power plant before it has a meltdown, which those already exist, so I would not enjoy that one.
Yeah, I would be down to give it a try. I think it'd be a fun theme.
Only if Mr. Burns was there.
For now, however, Marge tells everybody they need to take a floor and get started, and for some reason, Homer very excitedly calls the basement. The kids are just like, fine. And of course, when he opens the basement door, it looks like everybody's just been throwing stuff down the staircase for God knows how long.
It's after they say fine, he goes, dough?
Oh, yeah. Which is actually only the second best dough joke in this episode.
The whole questioning part. When he actually looks inside.
Then he opens the basement door and you see it's just an absolute pigsty. Then we get a full-fledged...
Dope!
We see Bart's in the living room and he's kind of lazily... He's kind of lazily scrubbing away at the coffee table. He's already whining and complaining, though again, Homer did it first, so he's actually a little bit more responsible than his dad here. But he does start to say things like, I'm tired, I'm hungry, can't we just buy a new house? And I totally get that sometimes. There are times you just look at your house and you're just like, fuck it, let's just start over.
Well, and then Marge does like the worst thing when she turns on old music.
Well, and that's even funnier, though, because Bart actually knows the song. The song that comes on is called 16 Tons by Tennessee Ernie Ford, who is a popular musician who was born in 1919 and died in 91. And even though this song came out long before Bart's time, he still seemed to know exactly who it was, because and it was super appropriate for the task at hand, too. It was talking about how you have to work all day and only go home broker. And Bart says something along the lines of, Amen, Ernie.
And the whole time Bart had been cleaning, too, it didn't look like there was anything getting clean. Like, he was wiping stuff, but it's almost like everything was so glossed into the table that he wasn't even doing anything.
Well, he wasn't applying any elbow grease. I mean, he just looked like he was haphazardly kind of wiping the cloth across the table. That doesn't actually work.
So you're saying there's not a chance.
Exactly. There's not a chance. Great sequence in the basement next up where Homer has decided that the best way to clean is just to take a leaf blower, and essentially he just starts blowing all the dirt and papers around the room so that they land even more messed up than they were previously. But he just kind of smacks his hands together and declares himself all done.
You're not done. I want you to throw away these old calendars and TV guides.
Are you mad, woman? You never know when an old calendar might come in handy. Sure, it's not 1985 now, but who knows what tomorrow will bring. And these TV guides, so many memories. Then we see Homer actually open up a TV guide, and he starts talking about an episode of Gomer Pyle. Gomer upsets Sergeant Carter. Oh, I'll never forget that episode. Which, if you're not familiar, that's literally every episode.
Pyle, Shazam! Pyle, Shazam! Pyle, Shazam!
Shazam.
And I can't tell you how many times in my life, man, that this little scene has popped into my head. And again, I referenced it at the beginning of our episode. I had no idea it was part of the Stampy episode. But, like, I don't know why that scene has always stuck in my head.
It's kind of a memorable moment, and it's really funny because it was drawn to kind of make fun of the concept of when people remember things, they're not necessarily going to remember all the details. They have so much effort put into them. They're just going to remember that little catchy, moment between these two characters, that one catchphrase, essentially.
So you're saying my memory of their memory is kind of like a meta joke?
Yes, exactly.
Stop remembering TV and get back to work.
What's the point of all this cleaning? Are we so vain?
Grasping at straws, Homer, grasping at straws.
I think that line would usually be a contender for one of my favorite jokes in the episode, but as you've already noted, there are so many good jokes in this episode that it doesn't even make the top 3, and that's not because it's not hilarious.
Well, did you notice in the basement they still had the Mr. Burns Native American statue, the Olmec or whatever statue that was?
Well, I mean, after you save Mr. Burns' life, after all, they deserve to have that, don't they?
They got a big-ass basement.
They do. They have a huge house.
Ah, the 80s. What a time to buy.
What a time to be alive. So we leave Marge and Homer in the basement, and we go and visit Lisa in her room where she is vacuuming under the bed. She hears music coming from outside her window, and she looks down to see what I assume is that little white girl's jazz quartet or whatever it was, because it's a bunch of little white girls playing jazz music. And then, of course, they have one special guest along with them to jam with them, and that's actually President Bill Clinton on the saxophone.
Which everyone remembers he was a well-known saxophonist.
Saxophone. We see Mo drive by scolding, "Hey, Clinton, get back to work!"
Make me!
And Lisa's really upset by the fact that she's missing out on this jam session with the president, which, to be fair, it's like, damn, what a day to miss the jam in the park.
Well, and when other presidents, are playing golf every day, if Clinton wants to saxophone for a few minutes, there's no harm in that.
True. So I'll go ahead and point out, this is from the commentary, which on this episode featured David Silverman, David Merkin, and Matt Groening. And even though I mentioned this episode was written by John Swartzwelder, he for some reason just wasn't able to make the commentary taping. I do want to point out, though, that they did mention in the commentary that Swartzwelder was actually a conservative as far as his political beliefs went. He would lean more conservatively towards that side of things as opposed to more liberal. David Merkin actually said that really he hated both sides and he was more of an anarchist than anything, but Makes sense. Truly believe that was his real opinions of Bill Clinton. And of course, there's a joke coming up later that I think puts a pretty strong window into his beliefs of what he thinks about both sides. Probably my favorite joke in the episode we'll be getting to a little later.
And it also shows them while he might lean one way, he's still, I find like no one's truly in the middle on every subject, so they might say he's leaning one way, but definitely the joke he takes at both sides was pretty damn funny.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Lisa's missing out, as is Bart, we know, and back in the basement, Homer's still upset, and he's trying to speed things along. He finds a Mr. Cleanser bottle, not to be confused with Mr. Clean, I want to point out, as they made that very clear on the commentary.
Even though he looks exactly like him, doesn't he even have the earring on?
I'm pretty sure it's like an exact, as close as you could possibly get and not be infringement. He sees that this bottle warns that you shouldn't use it in a non-ventilated area, but he decides to roll the dice anyway. He
Shove it, buddy.
Shove it. He starts pouring out a huge amount of this product onto the floor and he starts scrubbing, and instantly, in a very cartoon style, you can see the fumes start to rise from the concrete.
And all the little animals and mascots and all the little cleaning supplies he has down there look super friendly.
They do for a moment until they start to come alive, and then they turn into like evil versions of themselves. We see Mr. Cleanser, I must destroy you. Ah! 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 Marge yells down, Homer, what's going on down there?
Nothing.
Then stop screaming so loud.
Okay.
Ah! Ah! And he gets attacked by all of these little cleaning mascots.
Which, is this foreshadowing to a future Halloween episode?
Oh, wow, I didn't even make that connection, but perhaps if he just quit looking, things would get better.
I absolutely would have solved it.
I actually really enjoy it. I believe the turtle wax, like the turtle off the bottle of turtle wax, was actually hanging from his, 3 hairs, like dangling off the side of his head. And I think the scrubbing bubbles are going straight for his neck.
That probably needs to be cleaned anyways.
Back in the kitchen with Bart again, we see he's scrubbing the walls, and we also see that the Simpsons own a painting of American Gothic by Grant Wood. Bart's still listening to the radio, and KBBL comes on, and we can kind of hear them chattering in the background. Bart is still frustrated, and again, the music that's playing just keeps going in line with what he's going through, because Marty from KBBL comes in and says, and that was Take This Job and Shove It. Now, let's make another one of our lucky phone calls.
Okay, just answer the phone with the special phrase that pays, and you'll have your choice of $10,000 in cash.
Cha-ching!
Or a really stupid prize.
Cuckoo, cuckoo. Well, let's make that call.
We've got a future in radio broadcasting.
Too bad it's a dying media.
Oh.
I love that while this is happening, Bart is becoming more and more focused on the radio, less and less focused on what he's doing, and we see he actually starts to scrub the painting, which the animation here, I already called out the animation earlier for looking gorgeous. This is another moment of just beautiful animation as the painting starts to swirl as he's wiping it away. It looks really cool in my opinion.
Yeah, it did. I especially like the picture underneath the picture.
As Bart continues to scrub, it eventually exposes a just plain white poster with black text that says, "If you can read this, you've scrubbed too hard."
Do all famous paintings have that underneath it, I wonder?
According to the commentary, Dave Merkin said if you scrub under any of Grant Wood's works, you are in fact going to find that message. Complete
Awesome.
with his signature, or his, whatever you call that on a painting. For now, though, Bart is just excited because right after Marty announces they're making that phone call, the Simpsons phone actually rings. And Bart excitedly answers,
KBBL is going to give me something stupid.
and we hear Grandpa instead, "Bart, I'm having palpitations."
Can't tie up the line, Grandpa. Click.
Oh, God, they treat him so poorly. Love your grandparents, people. Love your grandparents.
Buy them onion belts.
They need you. Yes, please. It'll bring them back to when that was the style at the time. The good news, though, is for now, we don't know the fate of Grandpa, but back to the clean house situation. They have done their job. The work is completed all the way to the point where you can actually see, literally, as they do an outside shot of the house, there's a little gleaming moment where the house is so clean that it actually sparkles in the sunlight.
Aww. And then a great joke.
This is one of the contenders for my favorite jokes. Again, it does get beat out, but I would say this little quick moment, which that's the funny thing about this episode, is there are so many blink and you'll miss it moments that are absolutely hysterical. And this is probably the first one. Marge is congratulating everybody on helping to clean, and they're all excited to go get on with their day. And Marge says, "That's fine. Have a good time. Just don't mess up the house."
We won't.
But then, as soon as they walk through the swinging door in their kitchen, which the commentary did point out was added specifically for this joke.
I was going to say, like, they only have it when they need it. but it works.
It's this beautiful moment, because as they push through the door, you get a glimpse of the kitchen in its immaculately clean state. But literally, all it takes is for that door to swing back the other way. And in that instance, you can see the kitchen is absolutely destroyed again. And Marge just instantly looks defeated and has her classic, "Ugh."
All that work for nothing.
And honestly, that's the most frustrating feeling. It honestly feels that way all the time if you ever try to like keep your house clean, and hopefully most people try to keep their house clean. But there are so many times it's like you just spent all this time working, and then like the next day you're like, what the hell happened? I don't even have kids. What's going on?
Don't have children or dogs or gerbils or cats. Dogs are okay.
Really, just sit in your house and do nothing, and your house will always be clean. That's pretty much the only way.
If I got paid for it, I would do it.
After everybody decides they're going to take off and get on with the rest of their day, it's kind of funny because Bart actually goes straight to the kitchen where he continues to listen to KBBL and he eats some ice cream. Did you notice anything special about that ice cream, Rich?
He was eating just the chocolate.
Like father, like son. They're eating just the Neapolitan, or just the chocolate portion of the Neapolitan ice cream, which I think it's hilarious that it seems at least Homer and Bart, possibly every member of the Simpsons family does this.
Which I think that's my least favorite. We've talked about it before. Out of the Neapolitan, I think the chocolate's my least favorite. That vanilla and strawberry go really well together.
See, I actually like chocolate and strawberry, and the vanilla is my least favorite.
Well, that's why we're best friends.
That's it. I get the chocolate, you get the vanilla, we cut the strawberry in half,
Let's call
and we're good
the
to
whole
go.
thing off.
I love it. As he's munching down on his chocolate-only Neapolitan, though, we hear again on the radio, Marty pops up. Now, let's try another lucky phone call. And once again, the phone rings. Only this time, it's the Springfield police station, and things aren't looking like they're so lucky down there. Wiggum answers the call and immediately is like, help us! Help us! They stole our uniforms, guns, and tasers!
Fry, piggy.
Which we see Snake charging a taser in this moment, and I just immediately started laughing because just a few episodes ago, they said on the commentary they decided not to have Snake rob the Quickie Mart when James Woods was working it because that seemed too dark. But they have
shoot a poo.
But they had no problem with them threatening Wiggum like this in the moment. I just thought that was funny. No, don't. A little to the left. That's the stuff.
And that's why it was okay. Oh, I'm sorry. The phrase is, KBBL is going to give me something stupid. Pretty weird. Yuck, yuck.
Spring. I love that they just hang up on the police chief in his moment of need, though. To be fair...
He was getting what he needed.
Well, and to be fair, we're going to see Wiggum kind of return the favor to a lot of people around town here in just a little while. For now, though,
Foreshadowing.
It seems like there might just be one more chance as Marty announces, let's try one more number. And this time, the Simpsons' phone rings again right as Homer walks by the telephone.
Hello?
Yoink! Bart grabs the phone right out of Homer's hand, though he doesn't notice immediately, and says proudly, KBBL is going to give me something stupid.
Well, hot dog, we have a wiener.
Meanwhile, Homer is still holding the phone to his ear that isn't actually there. He's just trying to hold nothing, and he's saying, "Yellow? Yellow?" He finally looks down at his hands, both front and back, before realizing he no longer has the telephone.
And I actually love this I've always loved the animation in this part where Bart's like, I won, and like the sheer joy while he's jumping up and down. There's something about it that just always filled me with love.
Well, I think it's just always so wonderful to see Bart expressing joy when we know that really it's a middle-aged woman who's providing the voice for Bart. So it's a lot of fun just in that. I think knowing that makes it even more of a joyous moment somehow.
To me, in that moment, it's just like he's just the 10-year-old boy, though.
That's the beauty of it. I think Nancy Cartwright just does such a great job of being one with a 10-year-old boy. I mean, she becomes that character in the moment, and it really is just this beautiful thing to watch.
Phrasing.
Fair enough. For now, however, Bart hears, you win your choice of $10,000, or what's the gag prize this week, Bill?
A full-grown African elephant.
Well, all that money sounds mighty tempting, Marty, but I think I'm going to have to go with the elephant.
He's taking the elephant instead of the money.
And once again, we have this great moment where Homer is just oblivious to what's actually happening, and it takes him way longer than it should to figure it out. Marty is actually whispering at this point, the kid wants the elephant.
We don't have a damn elephant.
Don't whisper into the mic.
Kid, the elephant's a gag prize. Nobody takes the gag prize. You want the cash.
I want the elephant.
Stick it to the man.
Again, Homer oblivious to what really is going on with Bart turning down this money.
Bart, with $10,000, we'd be millionaires. We could buy all kinds of useful things like love.
And like I said, it takes him just a minute too long, but finally it clicks and Homer realizes that they could buy a lot of love as millionaires with $10,000.
He's got investment ideas, man. I mean, he's a smart guy.
Well, Marge has a pretty good investment idea, too. I mean, they could invest in double-ply windows. They look just like regular windows, but they'll save 4% on the heating bill.
Cricket.
Well, they will.
You all seem to be forgetting the most important thing, which is that it's wrong to imprison an animal. Cricket.
Lisa, go to your room. So, another fun fact from the commentary here. Dave Merkin actually mentioned, and I verified, the Simpsons have actually won several environmental awareness awards, even though 90% of the people in Springfield are absolutely terrible to animals in a lot of instances, because they have a character like Lisa who often stands up for animal rights, and we're going to see several examples of that just in this episode. They've actually won several awards and accolades from various publications and organizations, and including this episode, they actually won an award basically for being nice to animals, is essentially what it comes down to.
Well, if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because you have to go to an extreme to show the other side. So like when you have these absurdist characters being so rude and It's really, Springfield's like a farce of society, kind of, where everyone's just doing the wrong thing. And then when you have a character stand up to say the right thing, and Lisa's not even going to super extreme, she's just saying what a normal human being should say in that instance, it makes it stand out a lot more when she's going up against all the farcity of everybody else. I just made that word up.
It was beautiful, man. No, and I think this episode in particular, with the way it ends, really makes a lot of sense to why animal rights activists would see this as a positive message going outward. And you're absolutely right. You can't have a Superman without a Lex Luthor. It just doesn't work the same.
I'm saying that Lex Luthor makes Superman Superman.
Right.
What I'm saying, but I didn't know about this stuff when I was a kid, and when I saw this episode, the way that it's resolved, like, it makes so much sense, and it makes you think about that stuff. So, I mean, The Simpsons is making you use your brain, which you didn't think you were supposed to do in a cartoon show.
Right, in a way that The Simpsons kind of forces you to learn. Damn it!
But learn right things by doing wrong. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it literally helps set people's moral compass, which is crazy to think about for such a silly show on Fox. On Fox, of all things.
On Fox!
Exactly.
Miles, go to your room.
So Bart is standing by the fact that he wants that elephant, and Homer and him actually go to KBBL to visit Marty and Bill and talk about the situation. Bill and Marty actually explained to Bart that it's just a gag gift. They were really supposed to just take the money and that they could actually lose their jobs, to which Bart doesn't seem to care at all.
Either way.
Marty has an idea. After all, he says to Bart, "We think we know how your mind works, Bart. So how about this? We're going to pay your principal $10,000 to pull down his pants and keep him there for the rest of the school year." Ha!
I'll do it, Bart.
And Bart replies, no.
Okay. What if we use the $10,000 to surgically transform Skinner here into some kind of a lobster-like creature?
Now, wait a minute. That wasn't discussed with me.
Like Tusk.
You know what? Simpsons did that too, son of a bitch.
But they're trying to make Zoidberg 1,000 years before Zoidberg. 1,006 years, actually, to be exact.
Oh, my.
Did I just ruin one of your favorite recent movies?
No. For one, that's definitely not one of my favorite movies, though I do really enjoy that movie. But no, absolutely. It didn't ruin it for me. I just think it's funny that The Simpsons has literally done everything.
Crab people.
Crab people.
Look like Crab, talk like Skinner.
But through all of this, the fact that they might lose their jobs, the fact that they've gotten Skinner willing to degrade himself, it doesn't matter. Bart says, "Gentlemen, I am not leaving without an elephant." But then immediately we see Bart and Homer getting tossed out of the radio station, and the best part of that is Homer squeals with joy as he's thrown through the air. They start to yell through the windows, but the DJs just close them and start to play the next song. But you can tell.
I want my elephant!
As Bart continues to yell this through the music, it's picked up on the DJ's mic, and at the retirement castle, we can see Abe and Jasper reminiscing about how much they love that elephant song.
It reminds me of elephants.
And even Kent Brockman is jumping in on the craze of this story. So isn't that what we're all asking for in our own lives? Where's my elephant? I know that's what I've been asking.
Did you see the newspaper article before where it says, like, radio studio denies straight A students?
Right, I'm thinking they need a new fact checker for their publication. Though, to be fair, in the corner of that newspaper, it did say it was free, so I guess you're getting what you pay for.
Nothing.
Things are getting really serious at the radio station, though. Marty and Bill are being visited by their boss, who's essentially telling them they've got a new machine that can take their jobs if they don't fix this. I actually really like the first thing she says is, "Look, our ratings are down, and the station is being swamped with angry calls and letter bombs." And they show a pile of mail where there's literally letters exploding.
That made me think, was this before or after Inspector Gadget?
This was way after Inspector Gadget.
Okay.
I think.
It made me think of all the letters he would get that would explode. This message will self-destruct.
Well, that's a parody of Mission Impossible, which was back in like the 1960s, I believe.
But in the cartoon form, I was thinking of Inspector Gadget.
Sure, that makes sense.
Dumped all his mail off at the KBBL studio.
The boss goes on to explain to the DJs that they've got this new machine, the DJ 3000. It plays CDs automatically, and it has 3 distinct varieties of inane chatter. She presses a button, and we hear the robot say,
Hey, how about that weather out there? Whoa, that was a color from hell. Well, hot dog, we have a wiener. Man, that thing's great.
Don't praise the machine. The boss goes on to tell the DJs they better get that kid his elephant by tomorrow, or the DJ 3000 gets their jobs.
Those clowns in Congress did it again. What a bunch of clowns. How does it keep coming up with news like that?
Another contender for one of my favorite jokes in this episode. Very funny. That at any time this is going to work eternally too. That's the best part of this joke.
Yeah.
And it seems like their boss was able to light that fire under their ass, because the next thing we know, we're at the Simpsons' home again. It's the next morning, it would seem, and as the sun rises, the doorbell rings and Marge answers. Only when she looks out the window before opening the door, we see a giant elephant eye peering through the window, and this is the first of a couple of nods towards the very popular at the time movie, Jurassic Park, where, of course, it was the T-Rex peeking in during the movie. In this case, we see the elephant peeking by, and it's almost shot for shot, the same angle and everything.
With the eye and everything, yeah.
Yeah, really cool moment.
I love how the Santa's Little Helper and Snowball 2 bit, too.
The elephant essentially roars, or whatever it would be called when you're an elephant, touts its trunk, and yeah, Santa's Little Helper and Snowball, they just take off.
Yeah, but when they get to the horizon, they both look back, and then Stampy makes another sound, and then they run off again. They look back like, is it okay to come back? And then,
nope, and they're gone. And it's funny because as they're at the horizon, it's almost like they're peeking over a fence line.
Yeah. I just want to say, Miles, before we get to the end of Act 1, if we ever promise somebody an elephant, we better deliver. I don't want to lose our jobs.
They took our jobs. But as you just mentioned, that does bring us to the end of our first act, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break to hear from our Podern family.
Hey Nick, who would win in a fight between a dragon and a toaster?
Oh, definitely a toaster.
What? A toaster beating a dragon?
Toasters can get really hot.
Dragons breathe fire.
Metal's immune to fire. Everybody knows that. Besides, if you put a toaster in a puddle of water, it'll shock you to death.
Dude, dragons can fly. I think you'll be fine. One bite, your toaster's done.
Toasters are metal. We went over this. Extremely high defense, admittedly low attack.
See, dragon's just the opposite. High attack, low defense.
Let's take this to the Simulation Station.
To see how this and other battles end, head over to mythingcanbeatyourthing.com. You can find us on Twitter at ThingBeatsThing and email us your ideas at mythingcanbeatyourthing@gmail.com. Tune in every Monday for battles you'll have to hear to believe.
Greetings, friend. Do you wish to look as happy as me? Well, you've got the power inside you right now, so use it and send $1 to Best Darn Diddly. You can find us on patreon.com or donate to us directly on PayPal at bestdarndiddly@gmail.com. Don't delay. Eternal happiness is just $1 away.
$1 for eternal happiness, and to support one of my favorite podcasts. I'd be happier with $1.
And we come back to a very angry elephant with a very ferocious face and a confused family. Marge cries out to Homer and says, "It looks like it could gore."
It does look like Al Gore.
And Bart is actually just in awe at this point. He smells worse than anything. Hey, you, elephant, lift me up on your back, man. Bart! And Bart declares he tried to kill me. So Dave Merkin wanted to point out here, because there's actually once again a little bit of a disagreement between Matt Groening and David Merkin on this joke, which that seems to happen a lot. On these commentaries, it's very clear that David Merkin and Matt Groening have a lot of respect for each other, and I would say they even like each other. But I also think it's pretty clear at this time that there is a lot of just not necessarily even butting heads. That might be too strong of a word, but it seems like a lot of times they were on opposite sides when it came to certain jokes. And this is one of them. David Merkin never wanted it to seem like the elephant was trying to actually eat Bart. They were just trying to set up the idea that this elephant was kind of an asshole. But Matt Groening always kind of interpreted it as he was trying to eat him, and that didn't make any sense, which bothered him. So I can kind of see both sides, though on this one, I gotta say I agree with Merkin a little bit, just because I do think it's funny, especially with the ending we get, how they're really trying to plant those seeds that, you know, some humans are assholes, and turns out some elephants are too.
Well, it also plants the seed that Stampy likes to put people in his mouth, which will come in handy later.
Very true, very true. I also love the idea that Homer mistakes Marge's, it looks like it could Gore, too. Yeah, it does look like Al Gore. And again, knowing John Swartzwelder's political affiliations, that's even funnier in my mind.
Especially since it's an elephant he's referencing and not a donkey.
Marge points out almost immediately that this is going to be a bad idea.
Marge, I agree with you. In theory, communism works. In theory.
Homer's great line there, of course. But
one of my favorite all-time Homer lines.
Yeah, it is definitely up there. And of course, though, in this case, Marge's theory, or Homer's theory, excuse me, whoever's theory is proven almost instantly correct, because as Stampy goes and decides to give itself a little scratch on the corner of the house, it actually ends up destroying a portion of the house.
Look! He thinks he's people. And that's what I was referencing earlier in the podcast, that two of my most iconic lines are back to back here with the in theory communism works and then he thinks he's people. Like they use that a few times.
He thinks he's people is great. Absolutely. My dogs both do. That's for damn sure. Homer actually, though, comes up immediately with a solution. No big deal. The house, they don't want to have their house destroyed. They'll just chain Stampy up in the backyard.
Oh.
Lisa doesn't even need to intervene on this one because Stampy himself immediately just is like, I don't think so, and rips the chain right off. And then he actually hasn't got, I keep calling him Stampy, he hasn't actually got his name yet. This is the moment where he earns it, because as he marches away from the backyard, he just literally starts stamping on things.
And this elephant is a personification of Bart.
Yeah,
which means he's a beatmaster. A beatmaster, a beastmaster.
But that's when Bart gets the idea, I think I'll call him Stampy. Stampy is clearly upset, that's why he keeps trumpeting, and Lisa tries to explain that he's just hungry. They need to feed him. So they get some vegetables and hold it out, but Lisa tries to say, you gotta make this last, it's all you're gonna get for, and immediately he eats all of it. You ate it too fast.
Maybe if we tied it down so it couldn't move, it wouldn't get so hungry.
You can't do that, Dad. It's cruel.
Oh, everything's cruel according to you. Keeping him chained up in the backyard is cruel. Pulling on his tail is cruel. Yelling in his ears is cruel. Everything is cruel. Well, excuse me if I'm cruel.
And immediately Stampy scoops up Homer and starts chewing on him as well.
Oh. Now I've had my head in an elephant, a hippo, and a giant sloth.
Oh my god, I love how proud Homer is in this moment. He's like checking off a bingo card or something, and he's so close to winning.
The giant sloth's what I want to see.
How did he get his head in a giant sloth?
How did he get his head in a hippo and not die?
Notice he didn't specify that the hippo put them in his mouth or anything either. He just said his head has been inside of them.
Oh, okay, good call. He Ace Ventura'd it. Gotcha.
That's what I'm getting at. So Homer comes up with a brilliant plan to solve this food crisis. He takes him to Moe's, of all places, because after all, Moe offers free peanuts if you purchase some beer. And guess who loves to drink beer?
Stampy?
I love Moe here. I think you're taking unfair advantage of my generous offer.
Shut up.
Homer is such an asshole in this episode. This is one of the most jerk moments, or not this moment, but this episode, I think in general, is one of the times so far that Homer has been at his most jerkiest or whatever you want to say there.
But there's nothing else he can say in that moment that would make you like laugh or sneer.
No, it's a perfect Homer line.
And the way Mo is to everybody, I mean, it's fine. He can take it.
Mo is awfully surly, so
maybe this is the start of the turning point
back
for Mo. When he starts to become more of the I'm going to kill myself and less of the I'm a giant asshole.
Reading to children at the hospital?
Yeah. And that's when little girls became little women.
So, speaking of Little Women, Lisa has to explain to her father that Stampy cannot just survive on peanuts. He needs vegetables. And we actually see our second shot that is a reference to the movie Jurassic Park, which again was huge at this time. Stampy's very sick looking and lying down in the backyard, and it's very reminiscent of the scene with the Triceratops in Jurassic Park.
Poop and all.
Poop and all.
You know what I didn't remember? Because again, I said I stopped watching this episode for years just because I didn't want to see it anymore. I didn't remember how upset Stampy actually looks through every scene that he's in. Like, his eyes just look... He looks so, like he's dying through the entire episode.
No, it's a really well-done animation to show just how miserable this animal is. And, to be fair, if you had an animal in suburbia in real life, it would be absolutely miserable, because it really does need hundreds, if not thousands of acres to roam and be free to move around. I mean, just the size of the thing requires more land than anyone can provide reasonably.
False. Referencing
Unless
the
you go
movie
to,
that you...
Africa.
I was saying false. Referencing a movie you've already referenced a few times, the Jurassic Park series proved that a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex could thrive in a metropolitan area.
Yes, because that movie was so accurate to how things would go down.
Did you say Acura?
That basically was the Transformer sequence, if you think about it, but that's a whole nother story.
He found plenty of dog to eat, which was the most upsetting scene in that movie.
That is the most upsetting scene in that movie. Though that's just I love that book. That movie is disappointing.
You're disappointing. Talk about The Simpsons.
That's what my parents say. So back to The Simpsons. We see they actually do get a good idea in this moment. At least it's good if they're trying to save money. They take Stampy to the Arboretum where he has all of the leaves and trees that he could absolutely want to have. Yeah, tree place if you weren't familiar. I love Bart here as Stampy is enjoying all the leaves and eating them off of the trees to the Arboretum keeper's dismay. Bart's actually cheering him on. Strip it down to the bark, Stampy.
He says, strip the bark now, Stampy, and Stampy does, proving that Bart can control him in some capacity.
Again, though, the person running this Arboretum is just mortified at what's happening. Homer's actually mortified when he thinks a bird is killing Stampy, but Lisa has to explain to him that that's just how they groom him.
Grooming him, eh?
And we see Homer back on the couch with a bird on his own head, picking at his 3 hairs.
He's grooming me. Elephant fresh.
That night, we hear all of the dogs and cats in Springfield barking and making a noise until Stampy decides he wants some quiet, and he just trumpets and lets them all know, and instantly a silence falls over the neighborhood.
That's a pro to owning an elephant.
That's probably the biggest upside. This is a really fun sequence where you think that maybe, just maybe, Bart and Stampy are starting to bond just a little bit, even though it's been pretty clear so far that Bart is bonding with that elephant a lot more than that elephant is bonding with Bart.
Bart is Stampy's millhouse, basically.
That's actually an interesting but very accurate way of thinking of things.
Kind of makes you feel bad for Millhouse, doesn't it?
It does make you feel bad for Millhouse. Though he got a great deal on his elephant ride, as we'll find out later. Saved hundreds of dollars. Bart climbs up in his treehouse, and he actually gets a little assist from Stampy, who uses his trunk to tuck him in. He actually covers him up, which is really sweet, until he once again scoops Bart up and starts chewing on him again.
You always say chew, but it's more like suck.
I just feel like that sounds really weird to say, that Stampy's sucking on Bart.
It sounds really weird for you to say that he's chewing on Bart. Let's be honest.
It's kind of a chewing motion. I feel like there's chewing
elephants
involved.
Elephants don't suck, they blow.
Okay. That's fair. I can't argue with that. Wow. Well, whatever he's doing, he's putting... Damn it, that's going to sound worse. He's placing Bart in his mouth gently.
It's getting worse the more you talk.
So we'll just leave it at that. He does eventually replace Bart back in the treehouse and actually does tuck him in.
Aww.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it. The next morning at breakfast, we see our first sequence where the animals, the former pets, I should say.
The reject pets.
The reject pets, exactly. We see Santa's little helper and Snowball 2 desperately trying to get attention. I believe in this instance, they're balancing on little rubber balls and running around the kitchen, but they don't really notice, and Bart's more focused on Stampy. Lisa actually asks Bart, have you taught Stampy any tricks yet?
Nah, he doesn't want to learn and I don't want to teach him. We get along fine. The perfect pets.
Great line, yeah. But this is when we start to notice that having an elephant might not be just all happiness and being chewed on. And Homer notices that they are taking in a lot of bills. Chains for the elephant, shots for the elephant, and he even notices one for a giant oversized poncho for an elephant.
Technically it's for a giraffe, but I think I can let it out a little.
Well, these bills will have to be paid out of your allowance.
You'll have to raise my allowance to about $1,000 a week.
Well, then that's just what I'll do, smart guy.
Ding dong.
And this is where we see a bunch of the neighbor children have come up and they all want to see the elephant. One boy even declares, we'll pay you money.
For the 9th time, no!
Slam!
Wait a minute. This gives me an idea.
And of course, it sets you up thinking that Homer is going to have an idea to charge money to see the elephant, but that's not exactly his idea. Instead, the next thing we see is Homer hammering a sign that says, go away, into his front yard.
Here's a better sign, Dad.
I don't have time to read it, just give me the gist of it, son.
Well, Miles, the gist of it is that it says see the elephant $1 and ride the elephant $2.
I can understand why Homer would find that to be way too much to read.
Man, in 1994 dollars, this might have been like charging too much, but you're never going to make a profit in this day and age with those prices. It's not a good business
clearly
model.
Homer didn't make a profit with those prices in 1993 or 4 either.
Way to give away the secret in here in a second.
But for now, it does look like things are going well. They have a huge crowd of people in the backyard, all paying customers, it would seem. And they're all seeming to enjoy the either riding or seeing the elephant. So, I mean, customers are happy. They're making money. Everything looks like it's going well. Until that pain in the ass Reverend Lovejoy's wife shows up, Mrs. Lovejoy.
Well, first, I like the one child gets hit by Stampy's trunk and flies a little ways away. And Homer's like,
that's 5 feet. That's going to have to count as a ride.
Yeah. Homer's a good businessman in those situations. Think about the trampoline from a few seasons ago. He knows how to make money. He just doesn't know what price to charge.
Trimbopoline.
Trimbopoline!
But yeah, that's when Mrs. Lovejoy becomes Mrs. Buzzkill.
That animal of yours is certainly bad-tempered.
Lisa replies, yeah, well, you'd be grumpy too if you were taken out of your natural habitat and gawked at by a bunch of slack-jawed yokels.
Hey, Ma! Look at that pointy-haired little girl. Yuck!
And this is our
Why did I do that so well?
And this is our introduction to Cletus the slack-jawed yokel, who, as I mentioned, is only referred to as man in the script, but we do know that he's going to go on to be a much bigger part of Springfield, or maybe I should say the outskirts of Springfield.
Yeah, he'd be outside the bubble in the movie.
Except
that he's in the bubble in the movie.
Somehow. He was probably coming to town for, like, moonshine jugs or something.
Trade in his possums.
There's also a great image of Mr. Burns riding Stampy as well. It reminds him of the fat man he used to ride.
Is that
I
Homer?
guess I should specify the fat man he used to ride to work. Again,
God,
phrasing.
Miles. But is that Homer that he's referencing? Because he forgets him all the time?
Well, I know in a later episode, Homer will basically be his slave for money. I mean, I guess that's technically the opposite of a slave, but he'll do all of his stupid tricks or whatever Mr. Burns wants him to do for a pile of cash.
Have sex with a panda, basically.
Oh,
That's what happens in the episode. That's much, much, much longer down the road.
Very much so, yeah. We'll get there one day. For now, Homer is ecstatic about how well business is going. Marge, $58, and all of it profit. I'm the smartest businessman in the world.
Stampy's food bill today was $300.
Marge, please don't humiliate me in front of the money.
And then Homer gets an even better idea.
You know, the funny thing is, I think Homer actually does get a really good idea here. He decides to raise the prices. It's not that raising the prices was wrong, it's the amount in which he did this that was insane, because he raised the prices from $1 and $2 to $100 and $500, and of course, he immediately ran away all of his customers.
Well, the issue was the price that he started with. If he would have started at like $50 on the ride and like $20 to pet it, I mean, that might have worked, or even
I think
10
10 and 20. 10 and 20 was the magic number in my mind.
But he picked too low. He lowballed him from the get-go, which that was Bart that did it technically, so this is on Bart.
Yeah, but Bart's 10. He shouldn't have to be responsible for knowing
street
finances.
Smart. He's usually street smart.
So for now,
he's a middle-aged woman, Miles. Come on.
So with all of his customers ran off, Homer has time to go and try to backcharge some people. He starts with the Van Houtens. Homer shows up and says to both Mr. and Mrs. Van Houten, "So Milhouse saw the elephant twice, and he rode him once, right?"
"Yes, but we paid you $4.
Well, that was under our old price structure. Under our new price structure, your bill comes out to a total of $700. Now, you've already paid me $4, so that's just another $696 more that you owe me."
"Get off our property."
I want to point out how dignified Mr. Van Houten sounded in that moment.
Thank you. I feel like Homer actually, again, is onto something here, because I feel like this is how companies work these days, right? They paid.
No, I'm pretty sure you fucking pay for something and they can't change the price after the fact. I mean,
don't tell that to the medical industry.
When McDonald's charges me for a burger and then raises the price, they don't come and collect from me the next day.
Yeah, if you have a $4 copay, then you got to pay the rest later, and they'll start coming to your home.
Well, I would suggest not answering.
Yeah, their mistake was letting Homer through the front door. Why else would he be there?
After all of this time and unsuccessfully retro-charging people for their elephant rides, Homer does finally come to the realization that they just cannot afford to keep the elephant. But when he suggests that they need to get rid of the elephant to Bart, of course, Bart is not having it. They have formed a bond. However, Santa's Little Helper and Snowball 2 are still desperate for attention. This time in the background, as Bart and Homer are having this discussion, we see they're actually playing on a tiny toy piano the song "Mary Had a Little Lamb."
Aww. Still not as cool as an elephant.
But Homer, despite Bart's protest, decides that they are going to have to start seeing some people about selling the elephant. And unfortunately, the first person they encounter doesn't exactly instill a lot of faith that your elephant's going to be in for a good time.
"Well, sir, I'll be honest with you. I need a large African elephant, and I need it today. But I'm afraid this just isn't what I'm looking for."
What do you mean? It's an elephant, isn't it?
"Well, it is, and it isn't, if you understand what I mean."
He likes peanuts.
Which, you think Homer would be better at selling large, oversized animals. I mean, he had to sell a pony once.
I just really love how when the man basically does his little spiel about it is and it isn't, you understand what I mean? Homer just literally looks there blank staring for several seconds, not having a clue what this guy is talking about.
Oh no, I think it's part of Homer's negotiating tactics. He's like, if I act like I'm stupid, then he won't keep on with this shenanigan. He already knew it was a lost cause. Homer is a genius, remember that.
Yikes. We'll have
Mind
to agree
blown.
to disagree on that one.
Let the history book show that Homer was not a buffoon. Just don't ever roll the tape.
The second group to visit the Simpsons home does actually help raise at least Lisa's for certain. I think Bart's too. They both seem a lot more fond of this person. He's a warden who talks about a wildlife refuge. It's an ideal environment for elephants. They get thousands of acres and it's all simulated to be like the African savanna.
Man, Springfield just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Basically, the kids are sold, but Homer has two questions. How much and give it to me?
Well, we really can't offer you any money. We're a non-profit organization.
So your bid is zero.
Well, we like to think of it as...
Thank you.
You know, I really think...
Thank you. And finally, we see Mr. Blackheart. This is going to go well. He visits the Simpsons and has an offer as well. Mr. Simpson, I think you'll find the amount more than fair.
Dad, I think he's an ivory dealer. His boots are ivory, his hat is ivory, and I'm pretty sure that check is ivory. Whack, whack.
Lisa, a guy who's got lots of ivory is less likely to hurt Stampy than a guy whose ivory supplies are low. Santa's little helper, in a desperate grab for attention, has actually learned English, at least those 3 words, and spits them out as the entire family ignores them.
And Mr. Blackheart ignores it. I'd be like, I want that dog.
Yeah, if I'm in that game, exactly, that dog's got to be worth money. But Lisa just cuts straight to the chase.
Mr. Blackheart?
Yes, my pretty?
Are you an ivory dealer?
Well, little girl, I've had lots of jobs in my day. Whale hunter, seal clubber, president of the Fox Network. And like most people, yeah, I've dealt a little ivory.
Dad, you can't do this. Stampy is my friend.
Don't worry, son. I'll get you a new elephant. I'll take that one too. Done! All right, I'll be back in the morning to pick up Stampy.
Here's the keys.
Elephants don't have keys.
Well, I'll just keep these then.
So, Homer doesn't even really pay attention to his kids' protest at all in this case. They basically made the deal, and Bart knows that something has to be done. So, he decides they're going to run away from home.
Don't worry, Stampy. I won't let Homer sell you to that ivory dealer. You and I are going to run away together. We'll keep to the back roads and make our way south. Then, if I know my geography, it's just 12 miles to Africa. Okay, bud. Very quietly. Let's just sneak through.
And then he runs off, breaks the chains, and starts slamming through fences. And oh, by the way, he tosses Bart to the side, which is kind of a sad moment, honestly.
Well, he's an angry little asshole, so... Bart already put the idea in his head to run away, and that's just overtaken Stampy.
I really enjoy as the elephant runs through the Flanders yard, Ned wakes up and horrified. It's the 4 elephants of the apocalypse!
That's horseman, Ned.
Well, getting closer.
And then he just lays back down and goes to sleep.
I want to point out here something that I think you will appreciate. I think this might be our first real evidence of a theory that I know you are fond of. It's a dark theory that I should say we both find interesting. I don't think either of us are really fond of the theory because it's very sad, really. But we talked about it on the Secret Transmission podcast a little bit. The idea that Maude might actually be very out of love or kind of given up on Ned Flanders in a lot of way. And I noticed that in this moment when she pops up, she seems like she's almost a little bit, not necessarily disgusted, but just very annoyed with this. Like, this is probably something that happens a lot. Ned wakes up and thinks the apocalypse is coming, and she has to be like, no, Ned, that's not the apocalypse, or whatever. And she's also sleeping, of course, with her back turned towards Ned, which we know the groove in the bed points out that that's how she usually sleeps.
Well, but if you think about it, everyone that Ned is closest to kind of treats him that way. Like, Reverend Lovejoy hates it when he calls him. Homer gets annoyed with him instantaneously, and Homer doesn't even interact with him as much as the other two. So, like, everybody that's in his inner circle basically acts that way towards him, but, like, they always play Maude to be, like, the loving, supporting wife. But when you really look at it, it doesn't seem like that at all. And the reason I like the theory, because if Maude is like that and does not wish well on Ned, I mean, if she's that evil of a person, then by religious and Christian standards and everything else and not wanting to be with her husband, I would assume she would go to hell. And if she went to hell, more than likely, she's going to be seeing a lot more of Ned because he is the devil in most cases. So I think that's kind of a funny little irony there.
That's the twist is they do end up together forever.
Even though that's only in the Halloween specials when he's like that. A lot of times Satan looks completely different, but I like to think of it that way just because it's so funny in my head. It's so Simpsonian.
Very well. On that note, I think we have no other choice but to take a quick break, as that does bring us to the end of Act 2, but we're going to be right back with the conclusion of Bart Gets an Elephant. Hi, I'm Mr. Most Days Off. You might remember me from such podcasts as the I Love Lisa review, and so it's come to this, a Simpsons clip show. I brought a friend along with me today to talk to you about an exciting new product.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Richie the WizKid.
Miles, did you know that most people have no idea how to get a Best Darn Diddly t-shirt?
You can get a t-shirt with a podcast logo on it? I had no idea.
If you go to tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly, you'll find not only shirts, but also Best Darn Diddly hoodies, posters, mugs, and even phone and laptop cases. And that's good news for everybody.
That is good news for everybody.
And did you know the Best Darn Diddly products are also inflammable?
Richie, that means they catch on fire.
I had no idea.
Help support the Best Darn Diddly review show by buying our stuff at tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly. And do try to stay away from open flames.
Bye, everybody.
Back from the break and on to our final act, we see that Lisa is distraught and running to her parents' room. She declares, "Mom, Dad, Bart and Stampy are gone."
Oh my lord!
I bet it's because of that horrible ivory dealer. Dad?
That wasn't part of our deal, Blackheart! That wasn't part!
Oh, I love that line. That's such a Homer line. That was apparently a George Meyer joke, and one that if you're in the room with him when this is played, they said it would just set him off giggling for like 10 minutes at a time.
Oh, it's great. The way everything about it, just the whole realization. He thinks he took Bart too and everything. It's great. I love it.
Another great moment right after, too, because they once again actually have a pretty good idea, but then just things always seem to happen in this episode that every idea they have, either they spoil it from being dumb or it gets spoiled from a various reason. In this case, it's actually pretty smart that they're going to follow the path of destruction. Big giant animal stampeding through the neighborhood, they follow that and find their elephant. Only at that moment, as soon as they announce their plan, they see a giant tornado coming right at them down the street, obviously causing destruction everywhere.
Ugh, stupid tornado. Look, it's got Patty and Selma.
I feel it all the way up my skirt.
Ditto.
And this is a little homage to the Wizard of Oz, because both Patty and Selma are sitting in their rocking chairs. They say these lines.
When they live in an apartment, so why do they have a rocking chair? Because they're not outside.
And this is followed by another great little visual gag. This time it's that classic situation where two men are carrying a sheet of glass across the roadway, and they can actually hear Stampy crashing towards them in the distance, and they're just barely able to get out of the way and keep the glass from breaking. Again, though, immediately after, they have to revamp and dodge again as Bart is coming after Stampy on his skateboard. They are very pleased with themselves as they manage to save this glass. They continue crossing the street and immediately toss that sheet into a dumpster where it completely shatters.
It was actually a recycling bin. It's still shattered.
But yeah, just great that they're so worried about saving this glass and making sure it's recycled. Good for them. This is where we get Chief Wiggum kind of, I guess, this is what he deserved or why he deserved being ignored earlier. He's taking calls at the station. Yeah, right, lady. An elephant ran through your front yard. Okay. Goes to the next line. Wiggum. Yeah, right, mister. Mm-hmm. An elephant just knocked over your mailbox. Okay.
Ring, ring.
Wiggum. Yeah, right, buddy. Liquor store robbery. Officer down. Sure. And I'm Edward G. Robinson.
Which, did you happen to Google that? Because I had no idea what that was in reference to.
Well, first of all, I just absolutely love the idea that Wiggum is just completely ignoring all of his town's problems. And while you might expect him on the first elephant call to be like, okay, this is a joke, after you start getting repeated calls, pretty sure you're going to start taking that at least somewhat seriously.
Pretty sure, but not 100% sure. Throw in the Wiggum factor.
You're definitely going to take an officer down call seriously. But back to your question, Edward G. Robertson was, in fact, an actor. He was born in 1893 and lived till 1973, so he's way ahead of both of our times. But he's best remembered as playing a gangster in the movies Little Caesar and Key Largo.
So just a random reference, more so.
Just a random name that I'm sure Schwartzwelder was probably a big fan of his, since that guy apparently still lives in the 1800s.
Oh, dang.
That's like literally what people say about them. He's just like, he just refuses to be a part of modern society.
Way to be a Stampy, Miles.
I wasn't trying to throw shade. That wasn't that type of thing.
That was a very Stampy tone that you took there.
Oh. Are you calling me an asshole, sir?
Well, if the shoe fits, stamp it.
So, speaking of stamping things and stamping and Stampy in general, this is where we get to my absolute favorite joke of the episode, because we see Stampy is going on his stampede through town, and he comes across the Republican National Convention, and there's banners hanging. First of all, the Republicans, of course, cheer for him, even though he's destroying their convention, because he is an elephant after all.
A walking metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. As the elephant runs through their convention, though, the banners are the absolute best part, because one of them says, "We want what's worst for everyone," and then the other banner just says, "We're just plain evil."
And to clarify, Miles was not misspeaking when he said we want what's worst for everyone. It literally says worst and not worse. It makes it even better.
The absolute worst option for every person. Again, Schwartzwelder is actually a conservative in terms of his political standings, but you can clearly see by this joke, he doesn't have a lot of love for either side. They just visited the Republicans, and now it's on to the Democratic convention, where we see another couple of absolutely great banners. One of them says, "We hate life and ourselves," and the other one just simply states, "We can't govern."
Shots fired both ways. No one left standing.
The funny thing is, I think regardless of where you stand politically, regardless of which side of that coin you're on,
Stampy just beat you to death.
You have to admit, if you're being honest, there's at least a little bit of truth in all four of those statements.
Absolutely.
And that's why that joke is so funny. And again, that it's very brief. It goes very, very quickly, but it's the most I laughed at any time watching this episode, and it's one of my favorite memes to this day on Twitter. Stampy's rampage isn't over yet, though. Next, he's on to the peanut factory. Apparently, he just didn't get enough at Moe's.
And by the way, the Democrats booed Stampy when he came in.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely, of course, because he's an elephant.
Yeah.
But as he's on to the peanut factory, there's this great bit because the head person in charge slams the doors and starts to announce to his team, "This is what we've trained for. I know a lot of you thought I was crazy. A lot of you even wanted to switch departments or move on to a different company.
A different peanut factory.
But this is why we spent 2 hours every morning preparing." Only
BAM!
Wasn't able to get his speech out because then Stampy actually smashed through the door and all their preparation was for nothing.
For naught.
I do love, though, that this guy's worst fear of the peanut factory was an elephant ambush.
And he was right.
Meanwhile, while this is all going on, Bart has still been chasing down his beloved pet elephant. He's trying to find him everywhere, and he seems to have lost the trail. He's overjoyed when, as he calls out for Stampy, he hears his trumpet in the distance. He sees that he has wandered into the Springfield tar pits, where there is a hedge that's been cut like a woolly mammoth, and you can tell Stampy is looking for other elephants, for his own kind, essentially.
Well, the trumpeting was a recording, the first one was. It was Bart went to the mammoth and saw that it was a recording.
You're absolutely right. The first one wasn't Stampy, and then though when he gets to the mammoth, Stampy shows up again, seeking the companionship of another elephant, or at least elephant-like creature.
A hairy elephant. We know how Stampy likes them. Good thing he blows.
Oh. As Bart comes to the realization that his friend needs to be around his own kind, Marge, Lisa, and Homer all show up. Homer actually drives into a deer statue that's at the Springfield tar pits and declares, "Doe!
A deer!
A female deer."
And even as a kid, I love that joke.
Probably the best Doe joke they've ever done, honestly. It's up there for certain.
After rewatching it, I really like the dough. Just, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Though this dough joke is one of the tops of all time. May not be the best in my book, but I have trouble coming up with other ones at the top of my head.
It's really clever. It's absolutely clever. No other way around it. But the family does get over knocking over this statue, and they run to Bart. "Son, you're okay. And you led us to the precious ivory. And of course, your lovable pet, who it's connected to."
"Dad, I can't let you sell him. Stampy and I are friends."
Stampy starts to beat him with his trunk.
Ow! Anyway, I want him to go to that animal refugee.
"Forget it. That elephant cost me thousands of dollars."
"Dad, how would you like to be sold to an ivory dealer?"
"I'd like it fine."
"Even if he killed you and made your teeth into piano keys?"
"Yes, of course I would. Who wouldn't like that, to be part of the music scene?" That's one way to make it.
Yep. "Dad, you're sinking."
Huh?
"Get a rope, Bart."
And we can actually see that while giving his little speech about the music scene, Homer has actually landed himself in the actual tar pits, and he is slowly sinking himself down below. But it's okay.
This is my favorite part, I think.
"No, that's okay. I'm pretty sure I can struggle my way out. First, I'll just reach in and pull my legs out. Now I'll just pull my arms out with my face. Plop."
Plop.
And Homer is now rapidly sinking into this tar pit.
If only there was some person around that could control animals to help save the day.
And to be fair to Richie's absurd theory, Bart does tell Stampy, "Pull him out with your trunk, boy." I love though, Stampy does reach in and try to save Homer, but that's not who he gets first.
"Thanks, Stampy."
Barney comes out complete with a cigarette in his mouth, covered in tar, and of course he decides to light up in that moment and just completely engulfs himself in flames.
To be fair, though, think about it, man. Barney's not drinking. Yeah, I just blew your fucking mind, didn't I?
Wait, Barney's not drinking? What do you mean? How do you think he ended up in a tar pit?
I'm saying he was smoking, though, so, he wasn't drinking in that scene. You don't know that's why he ended up in the tar pit.
You have to assume this is something that he did while he was drunk. I assume that's the case.
Is that why Homer was in the tar pit?
Well, Homer's a different case.
Oh, okay, but they've been best friends since they were kids. Until
being best friends doesn't make them the same.
You take on some of your friends' personalities. You act like me all the time. Where do you think you get your humor from? Where do you think I get my self-righteous attitude that I'm better than everyone?
You're welcome for that.
I'm just saying it was a scene where we didn't see alcohol in Barney's hands. Although people
right.
do typically smoke after they drink.
Yeah, I was going to say, he went out for his cigarette and he fell into a tar pit because he was too drunk, is my theory.
Springfield's growing.
What we do know for sure is Stampy does reach in and actually saves Homer as well, and Homer couldn't be happier. "I'm alive! I'm alive! And I owe it all to this feisty feline."
"Dad, feline means cat."
"Elephant, honey. It's an elephant." I love how much Homer always just thinks he knows exactly what's right, and Lisa is often correcting him, and this happens a lot is what I'm getting at. I love the sequence between these two.
How about the next line he gets?
"And I'm sure he'll make a grand piano."
"Dad!"
"I guess it wouldn't be right to sell Stampy after he saved my life. And the boy does seem to have some sort of relationship with him, just now noticing."
"Thanks, Dad."
On the other hand, who's to say what's right these days? What with all our modern ideas and products?
Angry stare.
All right, we'll give the stupid elephant to the stupid animal refuge.
Yay!
Mom, we're stuck to Dad.
This is just what happened at the caramel factory.
Ow, my hair!
Caramel.
So it seems all is well with the Simpsons. They've decided to give Stampy to the refuge. Bart has a tearful goodbye with his pet. And this is another contender for best joke in the whole thing. Again, they've set up the idea that Stampy is a complete asshole throughout this entire episode. And when released into the refuge, he immediately walks over to the other elephants and starts butting his head against their sides.
Gosh, I thought he'd be happier in his true habitat.
Oh, I think he is.
Then why is he attacking all those other elephants?
Well, animals are not unlike people, Mrs. Simpson. Some of them act badly because they've had a hard life or have even been mistreated. But like people, some of them are just jerks. Ow! Stop that, Mr. Simpson.
Bop. Bop.
And we
Bop.
see that Homer is butting his head against the warden in the exact same manner that Stampy is butting his head against the other elephants. It actually seems right before we cut to close, the episode ends with Homer slamming his head against the warden's side. But I love this fact that when they cut to the elephants, it actually looks like one of them is dead. That Stampy actually killed the first elephant and is now killing the second, which I love the idea that they went through all this trouble to save this elephant, and he's going to end up killing more elephants than he's saved. That mathematically, it's a bad deal is what I'm getting at.
Quick, thin out their numbers.
But that does bring us to the end of the episode. Bart Gets an Elephant. Richie, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we get out of here?
Well, firstably, as your wife would say, I wanted to refer to my guide, The Simpsons, a complete guide to our favorite family. It points out the one thing we did not touch on is the tar pit sign. It says Springfield Tar Pits, the best in tar entertainment by Time Magazine.
They do rate everything. That doesn't surprise me.
Exactly. But again, I just wanted to reiterate what we talked about early on. I thought I was going to just really loathe watching this episode because I honestly do think the premise is a little absurdist, but on the boring spectrum of absurdity. Like, we all know how this is going to end from the get-go. We saw it with Lisa's pony. We'll see it again when they get a horse later on. And pretty much every time they get a pet, it just doesn't work out unless the name is Santa's Little Helper or Snowball 15, 16, 17. But this episode was really dang funny. I very much enjoyed going back and seeing how much humor was in the episode, especially a lot of the stuff Homer does. The interaction with the ivory dealer, him keeps trying to go back, or Homer keeping on that topic at the end of the episode. And just, there's so many great little moments within the episode that I didn't remember at all. So it's one of those things where when you build something up in your mind and you're going to dread it, what we talked about before on a few podcasts ago, your mind makes things out worse to what they actually are. And this episode was a lot of fun, and I'm kind of glad I went into it with negativity because I got to come out positively at the end.
Very cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed the episode. I did not have the negative filter that you had going in. I just had fond memories of this one, and I didn't feel like I've overseen it to the point where I was, dreading it by any means. But it definitely delivered, I would say, on par with my expectations, which were quite high. I do really like what you just said about the low end or the boring end of the absurdist spectrum. That makes a lot of sense to me, and actually something that I had written down was, in a lot of ways, this episode actually reminds me of Deep Space Homer. And clearly, they're very different episodes, but all I mean is they're taking a premise that's actually quite unrealistic. I mean, in no world is somebody actually going to be given an elephant in the middle of a suburban neighborhood.
Something that costs way more than $10,000, I'm sure.
Right. And just the same concept that it's basically the same absurdity that no average Joe is going to be sent into space. I mean, even when they have sent civilians, into space in the past, they're usually still very educated people who at least have, some training other than a few weeks course, of course. But I just think it's a really interesting concept to think about these two on the same spectrum, just because Deep Space Homer does take it a whole another couple of steps further. At the same time, though, the writing in this episode is so solid that it's a very funny episode. It makes you laugh all the way through. And if anything, at times you could argue this plot is a little bit weak by comparison to other episodes, but because of the dialogue between the characters, they make it work, and it still is very entertaining to this day.
They filled the gaps surprisingly well in this episode.
Absolutely. The only other thing I will mention is the tar pits at the end of the episodes are based on the real-life La Brea tar pits in central Los Angeles, where it's actually a national park at this point because there are actual tar pits that have real fossils. They've actually pulled out many fossils that have been preserved by the tar itself, where many animals throughout history have managed to fall in, including some dinosaur specimens that they've actually been able to recover. And to this day, they actually have little sculptures of dinosaurs sitting in the tar pits, but there's something that you can go to the middle of Los Angeles and the heart of the city, and it's right there in the museum district where you're going along from museum to museum, and you can go to this outdoor tar pit. It's an interesting concept.
I thought they made it a national park because they don't want people to fall in the tar pit, and people don't go to national parks.
That's exactly what it is. They knew it'd keep everybody out. No, but one last story from the commentary. Matt Groening actually recalls a night where he visited this area and he saw some, essentially he described them as hoodlums like Jimbo, Kearney, and Dolph, but they were pushing grocery carts into the tar pits.
Well, grocery carts don't struggle, so they can get out.
They were preserving it for history, you might say. But I do believe that is going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review Show. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us on this journey through the Simpsons series. Richie, where can they find you online?
As always, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at theWiz_kid23. Also, while you're on Twitter, go ahead and give our show a follow as well. That's at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. And that works all over social media. Definitely check out our YouTube channel and Instagram. But on YouTube, we both have our side projects going with Miles's Behind the Diddly and my Wrastlin' the WizKid.
Yeah, definitely. By the time this is out, there's going to be a couple of episodes of Wrastlin' the WizKid available. Check that out. I'm about to watch the one with you and Bob from the Nerd or Not podcast as soon as possible here when we get done recording, and I can't wait to see what he showed you.
I ruined our entire show and leaked a lot of company secrets, so be prepared.
Fair enough.
Get the PR team in here, stat.
As for me, I am at MrMostDaysOff. That works pretty much everywhere. Other than that, the WizKid and I look forward to being back with you again next week, and we're going to have special guest Sean from the Writer's Bone podcast to talk with us about the episode Burns Air.
He thinks he's people.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.
Hey, this is the Toph, host of the Gravity Beard Podcast, a variety show with interviews and discussions on a wide range of topics. Our guests have included a viral YouTube star, a former child actor. We've even had a guy on who may have solved the D.B. Cooper case. It's a delicious box of audio chocolate. You never know what you'll get. Find it on Podbean, iTunes, and other places you listen to podcasts. It's the Gravity Beard Podcast. It's what your ears will want to be listening to.